Welcome back to Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime, where today we re-enter the wonderful world of someone's Nintendo fanfiction, with the tale of Super Mario 128, a real-life tech demo displaying various ideas Nintendo had for video games, has had the unfortunate opportunity to become a fictional haunted story instead. I'm sorry about that, you guys. Mario has been a gaming icon for decades, and has been in more games than can be counted. The author tried, it's apparently impossible, although no year in recent memory has gone past without some type of Mario game being released. Series fans will remember the nearly decade-long drought of original Mario platformers. And you know what, that's not really ringing any bells at all, but luckily, the author's gonna break things down. From 1997 to 2005, there was only one new Mario platformer released. Super Mario Sunshine. Nobody try and refute that or this whole story is gonna derail. But during the second part of this drought, after Sunshine's release, a game about water, ironically, the mysterious Super Mario 128 was the main focus of the fan base, said somebody. No concrete information was given on the game, and eventually, series creator Shigeru Miyamoto claimed it had simply been a series of test concepts that were never intended to be an actual game. And meanwhile, in reality, real Miyamoto revealed that the game became Pikmin. The mystery faded from memory as the Mario drought finally ended, and most people forgot about the game that had once been the center of every Mario fan's imagination. Just imagine what they were gonna do with that pizza. The Mario drought is getting pretty redundant, but it corresponded with a bad era for Nintendo in terms of console sales. The Nintendo 64 and GameCube did not have the financial success of the earlier Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo, or later Wii. Somebody went to Wikipedia before they wrote this story. But for a very proud company that relied solely on video games to make money, and Amiibos, and Reggie's 24/7 meme service, this was quite upsetting for the higher-ranking employees that were attached to the company and felt that its success or failure reflected on them personally. Probably because it did. But Nintendo started working on a sequel to the 1996 Super Mario 64 shortly after the game was released. Authors just throwing out fun tidbits at this point. But during the late 90s, it became clear that Nintendo was not winning the console war. Though they did have the biggest console if you include the 64D, and I think that's something. The Super Mario 64 sequel was restarted from scratch though, since the company believed that it was not a substantial enough improvement over the original to turn the tides of the market battle. Is false, but we're just gonna live in the moment. Seeing the generally more realistic and violent games on Sony's PlayStation, some of which I'll go ahead and show you just so you can understand the kind of realism and violence being described. It was incredible. The market leader, Nintendo, considered making a Mario that was closer in tone to what the public seemed to want. But there was quite a bit of internal conflict over how far to go with this new direction, and the new Mario was clearly not going to be ready until Nintendo's next console, the GameCube. The story just fell in a rift in time. The only hint of this was released to the public by a comment by Miyamoto that he thought Mario and Luigi should act, and in quotations, more like grown-ups in their games for the then soon-to-be-released GameCube. Miyamoto with that perfect American accent that I know and love. But the new Mario project was ultimately split into two games / lies. Luigi's Mansion, which reflected the darker tone that many felt the series should turn to, and in parentheses, although it was still toned down quite a bit compared to what some Nintendo executives and developers wanted, so God knows what their problem was, and Super Mario Sunshine, which went in the complete opposite direction, because the opposite of ghosts is water. Both were released within a year of the GameCube, and Nintendo felt confident that their new system and Mario games, one of which started with the letter L, would return them to their former glory as market leader in whatever year we're allegedly in. As those familiar with gaming history know though, they didn't. The GameCube did even worse in market share than the Nintendo 64, which, hey, true or not, it still had that handle, but of course, because of Nintendo's inability to sell cubes, the mass market's taste shifted even more towards violent, realistic games. Again, some examples will be shown. Truly, the world was at chaos during these times. During this period, the somber mood at Nintendo intensified, and the darker Mario project was revived. This time codenamed Super Mario 128 because they fired the guy who comes up with new names. It isn't clear exactly what happened at Nintendo during this period, probably because this is a story that you made up. But what I do know, because as we know, nothing called Super Mario 128 was ever released or publicly shown, is a statement that can be refuted with the internet, so you're on thin ice. The source that revealed the internal strife at Nintendo during the later N64 era refused to discuss what was happening during the time of the GameCube's failure because they were a really shitty journalist apparently, but this person did release a prototype of Super Mario 128 online that can be played on the Wii's homebrew channel. Yes, by all means, keep not telling the truth. Build a lie collection. The following is a recollection of my time playing it. I feel like I was tricked into reading a really long intro to this. The game was clearly an early beta. The title screen was nothing but white text saying Super Mario 128 against a black background. There was no option menu or a save file selection either. Oh, the horror. After the title screen, the game started. Bowser's laugh from Super Mario 64 looped in the background as my cats fight while a plain text box appeared displaying this dialogue. Mario, I have taken Princess Peach, and she will not live to see the sunrise tomorrow unless you take her place. You know what to do and where to go. You know, stop fighting, you guys. Do not try to stop me unless you want to hasten her death. So do nothing, essentially. The game was certainly going for a darker tone, though. After I made the text box go away, I was thrust right into the gameplay. It hurt. The first thing I noticed was Mario's character model. His body was as detailed as in Super Mario Galaxy, although a little more realistically proportioned, so it didn't look like that at all. Cool. But his head was taken from his SM64 character model. I'm not sure why, but sure. But obviously, his design wasn't finished yet. The setting was a sky level. There were some simple platforms floating in the air. The rest of the air was just blue sky with several clouds scrolling in the background. The clouds seemed more realistic from the usual cartoony puffs in Mario games. They were quite graphically impressive with their graphics. There was no music or full voice samples from Mario, but there were sound effects / grunts when he jumped. The jumping was more subdued than in other Mario games. Mario didn't jump as high as he usually did and had little control over his movement in the air. The different types of jumps in every 3D Mario game weren't present. Good thing you didn't list any of the jumps specifically as to confuse any of the readers. I played through the level. There was nothing especially notable about the gameplay. Enemies didn't seem to have been added yet. I just jumped from platform to platform and it wasn't very challenging. God, why did you even write this story? But as I went through the level, I noticed the graphics gradually changing. The sky became more and more cloudy, until it was entirely composed of clouds. Good thing they were the most graphically impressive clouds ever, or you'd be in trouble. The cloud background gradually turned to a dark gray. After this, it started to rain. The drought was finally over. I reached a small platform with a toad on it. It looked like the Super Mario Galaxy model. Just thought I'd plug that game again. When I landed on his platform, dialogue appeared. We don't want you here anymore, Mario. You don't belong here. Just give Bowser what he wants. Die! Toad was arrested minutes later. After the text box went away, I no longer had control of Mario. Mario just stood there for a while, then turned around and walked off the platform. His body seemed to go limp as he fell. Eventually, it was revealed that there was a realistic modern city under the sky. What year is it? The buildings looked neglected, but there were people on the street. Mario hit the ground with a realistic sounding thud, whatever that sounds like, but he didn't explode or show any visible wounds. Great scary story. He just lay there. The people in the city kept walking by, ignoring Mario. Smart move. I wouldn't want to hang out with some dude who just fell out of the sky with Mario 64's head either. Although author says, I saw a few glance at him with cold, somewhat angry expressions. How dare you fall from God knows where, you sicken me. This went on for a few minutes and eventually people stopped appearing. Mario got up and I was back in control, but he couldn't jump at all and had reduced walking speed. The large buildings of the city didn't appear to be interactive, so I just kept walking down the street for a while. Sounds like a really fun game. You guys are fighting again. Eventually, I found a small house that seemed out of place among the larger buildings. When I approached the door, Mario opened it because he doesn't understand privacy or laws, and the screen went white and some black text appeared. House of Torn Memories. This seemed to be the level title, says author. When I pressed a button, the screen faded back to Mario. He was inside the house from before. Everything seemed bigger though than it should. It wasn't gigantic, but scaled as if Mario was a very small child. Where the fuck are you going with this? But the house was filled with normal objects, covered in dust and signs of neglect. I don't know how to take that. There were no people on the ground floor, just things like broken lamps and rotting food. I found a door that opened to a set of stairs going down, leading to a basement. In the basement, you say I haven't gone in because that's clearly a smart move, I found a dilapidated couch and a broken TV. However, what really caught my attention was what was on the couch. 2 skeletons that appeared to be children, judging by their size. And due to the scale of the house, they were still larger than Mario. I bet they were. I was starting to get really disturbed now. The plot was clearly dead. But how had a Mario game containing this been programmed to this extent? Cause I don't know programming, so I went up to the skeletons and tried to press buttons to interact with them or the TV. He didn't really care either way, but nothing seemed to happen. I was about to turn around and look elsewhere when I was nearly scared to death by a deafeningly loud crash coming from the game. He almost died, kind of, not really. What appeared to be Bowser seemed to have broken through the floor from below, usually where that floor is located, and landed in front of Mario. I say, quote unquote, appeared to be because this was nothing like the way Bowser is usually rendered with graphics. The reptilian monster in the game had Bowser's basic brownish yellow and green color patterns, so nothing I can see great, but looked far more threatening than any Bowser model I had seen before. I personally have never seen anything like it. It was not proportioned like the Bowser I knew and loved. Its arms and legs were far longer in relation to its body and ended in razor-sharp claws. The green shell didn't look like it had the spikes glued on. Another fun factoid, Bowser glues his spikes on. Yay learning! But they were more jagged and organic looking with the same dark green color the rest of the shell had. So it all looked the same is what you're saying. The face had a small but intense, pure black eyes, and a mouth full of jagged teeth that took up far more of the face than it should have, you being an expert, and Mario was cowering in fear from this, 'cause reasons. A dialogue box appeared. You've kept me waiting long enough, Mario. I will taste flesh soon. Will you finally surrender, or does Peach have to die? I still didn't have control, cause plot convenience, and Mario just stood there, shivering for several seconds before nodding his head. Bowser impaled Mario with his claws. There was no blood, somehow, but it was clear from the animation and sound effects that the sharp digits of Bowser's hand had gone through Mario's body. Yes, I know what impaling means. In one swift motion, Bowser dragged Mario up to his face and bit his head off. Again, there was no blood or graphic detail left behind on Mario's neck, just Mario's character model being destroyed. Somehow, we're not gonna explain that part, I guess. The screen faded to black. In white text, another level name appeared. Mario's Eternal Home. Mario's character model was whole again when the level started. It was the only thing on the screen besides the black background. It was floating, as if in space, I could somewhat control it, but it felt like it was like I was deciding the general direction in which Mario would tumble rather than fully controlling him. As I drifted towards no apparent destination, because we're just padding this shit out at this point, aren't we? Voice faded in. They were echoing, the one voice, deep voices telling Mario that he was worthless. Dots, that the world no longer had any use for him, and everyone would be better off if he was dead. You people are taking plumbing for granted, but a high-pitched crying was layered onto the voices after a bit. It sounded like it was supposed to be Mario's cries. Okay? This really disturbed me though, and I found myself fighting back tears for reasons I couldn't understand, and if you, the author, can't understand what's going on, then we're fucked. but it was affecting him on an emotional level. The voices and aimless wandering went on for several minutes, until I spotted a light gray speck in the distance. I moved towards it. It took a long time to reach and grew closer at a much slower rate than it should have. I'm an expert at these things. When I was close enough to make it out, I saw that it was a tombstone. Dun dun dun. This is our big fucking moment, apparently. It was very plain, with cracks in several places. When I got right next to the tombstone, I could see writing on it. I turned off the system right after reading it. Reading was the last straw, apparently, you spooky ghost. I'm not going to play the beta or hack or whatever this was again. There was a single word written on the tombstone. Innocence. And it was italicized. The end. So that was the story. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I learned something today. This story wasn't very coherent, and now I feel really sleepy, so I'm gonna go to bed. This has been Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime. Good night. Welcome back to End Slate, where I hope you guys enjoyed the guest appearance of some cats fighting in the background, as well as some birds flying. I don't know if anyone heard the birds in the background. That was real professional. Yeah. I also hope you enjoyed the Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime on this story. I'm sleepy and confused. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Hey, I'm gonna do End Slate things, because it's 5:35 in the morning, so clearly I should be doing an End Slate. So first thing I'm gonna End Slate is the last thing I did on this channel, the last video, if you will, that a bunch of people told me didn't show up in their subscription thing, which is always good to know, and that's reassuring. And it was a Gaming Mysteries and canceled Dragon Ball games. Dragon Ball Z games. Yeah! And then the middle video will be a mystery video or whatever. And then the last video is going to be a video from my gameplay Let's Play channel. Maybe a Persona 3 video, or that part of Corpse Party, Book of Shadows, I don't know. Either way, that's the thing. And then at the bottom of the screen, there's social media stuff. Nico does the art. That I would never forget, even if I was sleepy. And you can follow him, and then there's my stuff. Twitter is good for video updates. Facebook is good for whenever I remember I have a Facebook. And then to end, you know, if you like the video and you want to like it or subscribe, that's fine. It's appreciated. I love you, but I'm not gonna force you to do it. So yeah. Now I'm gonna go to bed. I've been really sleepy. I don't know why. I keep ending these off with me being sleepy. I'm sorry. I'll do something more exciting next time, like getting a gunfight or I don't know. See you guys next time on End Slate.